Okay, welcome. I'm very excited to be here to talk to you all about California marine protected areas. Very first, just a little bit about me. My name is Lily. I currently am the interpreter one for Wilder Ranch State Park. I used to work at Natural Bridges as well. And as Dylan mentioned, my big fancy title is Santa Cruz District's California State Parks Marine Protected Area Outreach Program Coordinator. So big long title. But I also answer to just Hey Ranger. So a little bit about this project before we jump into everything specifically about MPAs, because this project is the reason that I'm here and able to speak with you all right now. So the State Parks MPA Outreach and Education Project is a group of interpreters throughout the state who are here to talk to the public about marine protected areas. We do a lot with ports, if you're familiar, parks online resources for teachers and students. It's a super cool program. If you've ever heard any of your interpreters talk about doing a virtual field trip, they're probably doing it through ports. We also make digital MPA resources. We give different field trips, in person and virtual, tide pool tours, live dive, underwater live streams, community outreach, all kinds of awesome stuff. So if you see an interpreter out there talking about MPAs, they might be part of our team. So I wanted to start by asking you all a question, and you can put this in the chat if you would like. When you think about the ocean, what do you think about? You can say words, phrases, feelings, specific places, particular animals, anything. Just think about when you think of the ocean, what's some of your go-to words? And go ahead and throw those in the chat. And I'd love to take a look and see what we all think about. I see the sound, rocks, water, the depth, something infinite, something massive, tide pools, cold, deep water, kind of mysterious, something unexplored, refreshing, vast, water, food. That's a good one. The health of the ocean, source of life, animals, they're coming in too fast. But yeah, those are all amazing things. So I've highlighted a couple here. Some of the things we might think about are the ocean's natural beauty. It's a beautiful place to just enjoy. It has a lot of really unique sea life that only lives in the ocean. You might be thinking of fishing. I love eating seafood. I don't know about you, but also transportation, shipping, and of course, recreation, whether that's scuba diving, tide pooling, lounging on the beach, what have you. We're all very connected to the ocean, especially here in California. Here, especially right along the coast, we absolutely love our oceans. They connect us to the rest of the world. They provide food, recreation, natural beauty. They stabilize our climate so we're not too cold in the winter and not too hot in the summer. And besides how they benefit us, of course, they also are home to so many incredible organisms, from a teeny tiny crab to a gigantic whale. So we kind of have this challenge here in California, especially like Central Coast. We live right on top of the ocean. So how can we conserve something when we're right on top of it? And it's really easy for that to become unbalanced. So these photos here are from a fishing competition in Florida. And you can see through the decades, these are the winning fish. And you can see this trend here. In 1958, the fish are bigger than the people are. And then they get a little bit smaller in 1965. They get a little smaller. And by 2007, they're pretty small fish. And these are the biggest fish that they could catch. So what's going on here? There's a weird trend, right? These are some other aerial images here from different estuaries that show just how damaging boat propellers can be. You can see perfect little circles right around where all of those boat and jet ski propellers are that have just ripped right out all of the seabed. So, what can we do to protect these estuaries as well? So, marine protected areas are our answer, or at least they're California's answer. These are run by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and there are 124 of them statewide. Oh, I managed to pause my snazzy little video there. Let's try one more time. There's 124 of them statewide, covering 550, almost 550,000 acres of water, 16% of California's state waters, and 35 marine protected areas that are right next to 42 state parks. So California State Parks has a pretty big share in interpreting and giving outreach about these incredible protected areas that we have. Marine protected areas are also really important, not just for the wildlife, but they also make sure that we are able to enjoy them. We're able to enjoy a really nice, pristine environment that hasn't been totally fished or trampled or destroyed. So they're good for just the recreational value as well. And so this is a very simple graphic of how a marine protected area works. You set aside a specific area of land, or excuse me, not land, water. That's kind of the whole point. A specific area of water. And that area within those boundaries is your marine protected area. And everything outside of it is not protected. It's not in the MPA. Inside, protected. There are different levels, which we'll talk about later, but the life inside the marine protected area is able to flourish. You see on the right side here, we have more kelp, more fish, more biodiversity, a lot more incredible animals there. And then in the side that's unprotected, you have a bit less. It's not dead, but definitely less. So you think about the ocean and you think about how we approach terrestrial ecosystems and protecting them, right? We have a park within a specific boundary. The ocean doesn't quite work the same though, because here in a terrestrial ecosystem, everything that's on the ground is probably going to stay on the ground. And if it's a bird, maybe they'll migrate through, but most of the environment is attached to the ground in some way. Even those birds that migrate, they've got to come down and land on the ground or in trees at some point, right? The ocean doesn't work like that. In the ocean, it's a truly three-dimensional environment. You have these fish that will migrate through one area and they may never be back again. So how does it work with making specific boundaries? Well, luckily, when you make specific boundaries, that becomes a safe haven for life. And then that life spills over into unprotected areas. So you can see some of our rockfish are migrating over to our unprotected area on the other side of the screen there, where they might be caught by a fisherman. And that's okay. The point of marine protected areas isn't that people don't get to fish, because that would be pretty sad for the fishermen and pretty bad for all of us who really like to eat seafood. So the marine protected area makes sure that you have an area where the fish are able to flourish. And when they overspill into an unprotected area, they can be caught by fishermen. So their stock is never going to collapse. So it's sustainable fishing and conservation rolled up into one. How many of you have heard of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary? You can give me a thumbs up, a raised hand, a emoji in the chat. I just want to see how many people have heard of the National Marine Sanctuary. Anybody? Whoa, this is surprising because it means my joke won't land. We're not that. A lot of people tell me, oh, the National Marine Sanctuary, I learned all about that at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We're not the same thing as the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Now, don't get me wrong, we love our National Marine Sanctuary. It's still an incredible level of protection for the entire Monterey Bay. But the National Marine Sanctuary is run by the federal government, whereas the specific marine protected areas that I'm talking about, like 124 of them, those are run by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So you can think of our marine protected areas as big National Marine Sanctuary, and then a second layer of protection, those smaller California marine protected areas. So this is a big, crazy map. You can see there are a lot of MPAs throughout the state. There are different little dots that tell you different kinds of MPAs. I haven't listed all of them because there's 7, and that would be a lot more information than you need. But as a sort of overview, the red spots are called state marine reserves. And a state marine reserve means you are able to enjoy the environment. You are not allowed to take anything. You can't collect fish. You can't collect rocks. You can't collect shells. You can't collect algae, urchins, mussels, nothing, living or dead. Then we have our blue spots, which are state marine conservation areas, which allow limited take. So there might be a certain species that you are allowed to collect, or you might be able to collect something at a certain time of year, but not the entire year. So there's a little bit that you can collect from there, but not that much. And then the purple is another kind of a state marine conservation area where you can't take anything. And then those pink spots are called special closures where not even people are allowed to be in there. It's that high level of a protection. But the two that are the most important for us to know, talking about locally here in Santa Cruz, are those state marine reserves and state marine conservation areas. So here in Santa Cruz, we have 4 marine protected areas. Only 3 of them you can actually get to by land. So starting up north, we have the Año Nuevo State Marine Reserve, meaning you can't fish or collect at all from Año Nuevo. Then just below it, we have the Greyhound Rock State Marine Conservation Area, where there are certain kinds of things you're allowed to collect and other things that you're not allowed to. The Natural Bridges State Marine Reserve, which starts at Natural Bridges Park and actually goes through Wilder Ranch up to 4 Mile Point. So it encompasses all that section of coast there. You can see it doesn't extend very far into the water because it was set aside to mostly protect the tide pools there. But that is also a state marine reserve where there is no collecting of any kind allowed. And then there's Soquel Canyon, which is way out in the water. You're not going to get there unless you're using a boat, but there's also a sort of limited amount of things you can take from there as well. And then real quick, just how can you get involved? If you're like, oh my gosh, I love the ocean. I didn't even realize that we had this incredible system here. Tell me more. So there are several different ways that you can get involved with our marine protected areas. One being the Santa Cruz MPA Collaborative. There is a whole network of marine protected area collaboratives that exist throughout California. And they are groups of stakeholders who come together to talk about and advocate for marine protected areas. Now, this is not exclusive to people who work for governmental bodies. This is here for absolutely everybody, whether you're just a member of the public who cares about the ocean, if you're a fisherman, if you love, recreational fishing or even professional fishing, or a tribal member or anything at all. We want your input. So if you're interested, you can totally join the Santa Cruz MPA Collaborative. And I am going to paste a link to that in the chat really quick. Cool. And then that middle little box there is for MPA Watch. Now, in any kind of scientific setting, and marine protected areas are a scientific setting for sure, you need to make sure that what you are trying to do is actually working. So MPA Watch is a survey program where you can go onto a particular, they're very set aside, they're transects. You can go onto a beach, you can tally up the different human activities. Are they hanging out on the beach? Are they surfing? Is there a dog on the beach? That sort of thing. And just collecting data on human use of both areas outside of the MPAs and inside the MPAs. And this is a long form data set. So if you like science, you may be interested in MPA Watch. I know Natural Bridges does MPA Watch, and Año Nuevo also has an MPA Watch program, although I'm not sure how active it is at the moment. And then, of course, if you love being out in the MPAs or just the ocean in general, there are also other parks that you are welcome to volunteer at if you would like to. Not trying to steal you away from your mountain sector, I would never. But, there are other opportunities for you if you would like to continue being involved with outreach for the marine protected areas. But of course, there is one thing that you can do that's probably the easiest and the most important: recreating responsibly. So when you go out to the tide pools or to any beach in the area, you want to make sure that you are treating everything nicely. You're leaving it just as good, if not better, as when you found it. So first, if you're in a marine protected area, don't take anything, especially if you're in one of those state marine reserves, because collecting is actually illegal and you definitely don't want to end up with some kind of ticket. So don't take anything when you come to a marine protected area. And then there's also just generally good etiquette for when you're out tide pooling. So if you see an animal in a tide pool, don't take it out of that tide pool because that's its home. It needs the water. And there are a lot of animals that have a very specific pool that they live in. And if you pick them up and put them in a different one, you're like, it's like if I picked myself up from Capitola and dropped myself in central Santa Cruz and said, go live there. I wouldn't have any idea what to do, and neither would that little crab or fish or slug that you picked up. Um, Definitely don't take them out of the water, but also, of course, don't move them to other tide pools. Please walk very gently. A lot of the time, people will walk over the mussel beds or other things that they might not even realize are living animals that probably don't appreciate being tromped on so much. And of course, if there are any rocks that you find in the water, don't turn them over. Underneath that rock is a tiny little micro environment that those animals have decided is perfect for them. And maybe it's just perfect as a hiding spot. But as soon as you turn that rock over, microclimate ruined and hiding spot, they're now out in the open. And of course, if you squish it back over, you might squish one of your friends in down there. So don't flip over any rocks while you're out tide pooling. And that is my very brief version of MPA.